This wasn't just pain, this was an attempt to break you. There was a moment, you remember it. Not just a bad day, not just a rough week. No, this was different. Everything started collapsing at once. Your mind wouldn't stay quiet. Your emotions felt heavier than usual, like something was pressing down on you from the inside. And spiritually, something felt off. Disconnected, distant. You tried to explain it. You told yourself, maybe it's just stress. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe this is normal. But deep down you knew this wasn't random. Because it didn't come slowly. It didn't give you time to adjust. It hit you all at once like waves crashing back to back, not letting you breathe. One problem turned into three turned into 10, and suddenly, everything that once felt stable didn't anymore. Your relationships felt strained. Your motivation disappeared. Even the things that once gave you peace felt empty. And you sat there, in the middle of it all, asking yourself, why now? Why everything at once? Why does it feel like life is working against me? You weren't just going through something. It felt like something was going through you, like you were being tested, stretched, pushed to a limit you didn't even know existed. There were nights, long, silent nights, where your thoughts wouldn't stop racing. You questioned everything. Your path, your purpose, even yourself. You wondered if you were losing something, or maybe losing who you are. And the strangest part, the timing. It all happened at the exact moment when you were starting to grow, when you were beginning to see things differently, when you were finally stepping into something greater. That's when it hit. Harder, deeper, more personal than anything before, almost like it was designed that way. Like something didn't want you to reach the next level. You tried to hold on. You really did. But it felt like every time you found a little strength, something else came to take it away. Another setback, another disappointment, another moment that made you question if it was even worth continuing. And yet, somehow you didn't break. You bent, you struggled, you doubted. You felt like giving up more times than you can count. But you didn't. And that's what makes this different. Because most people would have stopped. Most people wouldn't have made it through what you faced in silence. But you did, even when you didn't understand why. Even when nothing made sense. Even when it felt like the entire world was closing in on you. You kept going. Not perfectly, not confidently, but you kept going. And now, looking back, there's a question that still lingers in your mind. Why did everything hit you at the same time? Why did it feel so targeted, so precisely, so overwhelming? Why did it feel like something was trying to break you, not just challenge you? You felt it. You knew it. There was something deeper happening behind the scenes. Something you couldn't see. Something you couldn't explain. But something that felt intentional. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't about destroying you. Maybe it was about revealing something. Something hidden beneath the pressure. Something that only shows itself when everything else falls apart. Because what they didn't realize is who they were trying to destroy. It didn't start loud, it started quietly. It didn't start with chaos. That's the part that still haunts you. It was quiet, subtle, almost invisible. It was small at first, barely noticeable, but it kept growing. A slight shift in your mood. A little more stress than usual. A few things not going your way. Nothing you couldn't handle right. That's what you told yourself. It's just a phase. It'll pass. I've been through worse. But then it didn't pass. It lingered. And slowly, almost carefully, things began to change. People started acting different. Not all at once, just little things. A tone that felt colder. A conversation that felt off. A distance that wasn't there before. You noticed it, but you brushed it off. It's probably nothing. But deep down, it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like something was shifting quietly behind the scenes. It was small at first, barely noticeable, but it kept growing. Then came the pressure. Things that once felt easy started feeling heavy. Simple decisions became overwhelming. Your mind, once clear, started filling with noise. Overthinking, doubting, questioning everything. And still you tried to stay grounded. You told yourself to stay positive, to stay focused, to stay strong. But the weight kept increasing. Not all at once, never all at once. Just enough to make you uncomfortable. Just enough to make you tired. Just enough to make you question yourself. Then things began slipping. Opportunities you were counting on disappeared. Plans you were building fell apart. Doors that once seemed open quietly closed. No explanation, no warning, just gone. And that's when it started to feel different. Because once, maybe twice, you could call it coincidence. But this felt patterned, intentional. Like every time you tried to move forward, something pushed you back. Every time you found a little peace, something disturbed it. And your peace, that inner calm you used to rely on, it started turning into pressure. Constant pressure. You couldn't relax the same way anymore. Even in silence, your mind was loud. Even in stillness, something didn't feel right. It was small at first, barely noticeable, but it kept growing. Then came the cracks. Not the kind people could see, the kind you felt. Internally, your patience wore thinner. Your energy dropped faster. Your hope started flickering. And still, you kept showing up. You kept trying. You kept pushing. You kept believing that things would shift back. But instead, they intensified. Relationships you trusted started feeling unfamiliar. People you leaned on became distant, or different, or gone. And you were left wondering, did I change or did they? Because nothing made sense anymore. The timing was off. The patterns were strange. The weight was increasing. And yet, from the outside, everything might have looked normal. But you knew. You felt it. This wasn't just life happening. This felt like something unfolding. Something slow, something precise. Something that didn't want to reveal itself too quickly. Because if it did, you would have seen it. You would have prepared for it. But instead it crept in. Quietly. Strategically. It was small at first, barely noticeable, but it kept growing. Until one day, you looked around and realized everything felt different. Not broken all at once, but dismantled piece by piece. Your peace disrupted, your direction unclear, your foundation shaken, and the question kept echoing in your mind. Why does this feel so targeted? Not random, not accidental, targeted, like something studied your strengths, found your weak points, and applied just enough pressure over time to slowly wear you down. Not in a way that would make you quit instantly, but in a way that would make you question everything. And that's what made it so powerful, because it didn't attack all at once. It unfolded, step by step, moment by moment, until the chaos didn't feel sudden anymore. It felt inevitable. You didn't just struggle, you went through it alone. And then came the silence. Not the peaceful kind, not the kind you choose. The kind that finds you, even when you're surrounded by people. Because that's when it hurt the most, didn't it? Not when you were alone, but when you weren't, and still felt like you were. You could be in a room full of voices, laughter, conversations, and somehow, none of it reached you. It was like you were there, but not there. Present but unseen, listening but unheard. And the hardest part, no one noticed. They saw your silence, but not your battles. They saw your distance, but not the weight pulling you away. They saw you, being quiet, but had no idea how loud it was inside your mind. Because how do you explain something you don't fully understand yourself? How do you put into words a feeling that doesn't even have a name? You tried, didn't you? Maybe once, maybe twice. You opened up just enough to test the waters. Dropped hints, said a little more than usual, hoping someone would feel it. But instead, You got surface-level responses. It'll be okay. You're just overthinking. Everyone goes through this. And just like that, you pulled back. Not because you wanted to, but because you realized they didn't see it. They couldn't feel it the way you did. So you stopped explaining. You started carrying it quietly. And that's when the isolation really began. Not physical isolation, but emotional, mental, spiritual. The kind where you're constantly surrounded, but internally, you're miles away from everyone. You smiled when you had to, nodded when people talked, played your role, did what was expected, but inside, you were fighting something no one else could see. They saw your routine, but not your resistance. They saw your presence, but not your pressure. They saw you showing up, but not what it took to get there. Every single day, and it exhausted you, because pretending you're okay, when you're not, takes more energy than most people will ever understand. There were moments, quiet moments, where you just sat there, staring into nothing. Not because you had nothing to do, but because you didn't have the strength to do anything at all. And still no one noticed. Or maybe they did. But they didn't understand. And that's what made it heavier. Because it's one thing to struggle, but it's another thing to struggle alone. To feel like you're carrying something invisible, something heavy, something constant, and no matter how hard you try, you just can't seem to make anyone else see it. So you adapted. You became quieter, more observant, more distant. Not because you stopped caring, but because you realized. Not everyone is meant to understand your battles. And somewhere along the way, you stopped expecting them to. You started handling things on your own, processing things in silence, healing, hurting, questioning, all within yourself. And it changed you. It made you stronger, yes. But it also made you feel like an outsider in your own life. Like you were living in a world that no one else experienced the same way you did. And maybe that was the point. Because what you were going through was never meant to be understood by everyone. It was deeper than that, more personal, more isolating. And even though it felt like abandonment, even though it felt like you were left to face it all alone, there was something about that silence, something about that isolation, that was shaping you in ways you couldn't yet see. Because while they saw your silence, they never saw the strength it took to survive it. There was a moment you almost didn't make it, and then it reached that point, that moment. The one you don't talk about, the one you try to forget. But somehow it never really leaves you. Because that was the moment you almost didn't make it. Everything had been building slowly, quietly, and now it all came crashing down at once. You were tired, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, a kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix, drained. Like something had been pulling from you for so long, there was nothing left to give. Done. Not in a loud way, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, heavy, final kind of way. You sat there staring at nothing, your mind running but going nowhere. Thought after thought, question after question. Why is this happening? What did I do to deserve this? How much more can I take? And the scariest part, you didn't have answers anymore. The hope you used to hold on to felt distant. The strength you once relied on felt gone. Even the idea that things would get better felt like a lie. And in that moment, you weren't fighting anymore. You were just existing, barely holding on, going through the motions, breathing, thinking, feeling, but without purpose, without direction, without light. You were tired, drained, done, and for the first time, you actually considered letting go. Not because you wanted to, but because you didn't know how to keep going. That's how deep it got. That's how heavy it became. It wasn't just a bad day. It was a breaking point, a moment where everything inside you said, I can't do this anymore. And you believed it. You really did. Because you had given everything. You had tried over and over again. To stay strong, to stay positive, to stay hopeful. But every time you stood back up, something knocked you down again. And eventually, you stopped getting back up the same way. There was hesitation. There was doubt. There was fear. Because a part of you started wondering, what if I'm not strong enough for this? And that thought, it echoed, louder than anything else, over and over again, until it felt like the truth. You were tired, drained, done. And right there, in that silencer, in that moment where you had nothing left, where giving up felt closer than ever before, something strange happened. You didn't fall. You didn't completely break. You didn't disappear into that darkness the way it felt like you would. You paused, right on the edge, and somehow you stayed, not strong, not confident, not even hopeful, but still there, breathing, existing, holding on by something you couldn't even explain. And maybe that's what confused you the most. Because by all logic, by everything you felt, by everything you went through, you should have fallen, you should have given up, you should have broken completely. But you didn't. Something didn't let you. Something held you. Not loudly, not forcefully, but just enough to keep you from letting go. And you felt it, even in your weakest moment, even when you had nothing left to give. There was something still there, quiet, unseen, unexplained, but present. And maybe you didn't understand it then. Maybe you still don't fully understand it now. But that moment, that breaking point, that place where you almost disappeared, was also the moment something refused to let you. You didn't survive by accident. And somewhere in the middle of all that darkness, something shifted. Not around you, not in your circumstances, not in the chaos that surrounded your life, but inside you, quietly, subtly, almost unnoticeable at first, because nothing outside had changed. The pressure was still there. The confusion was still there. The weight still heavy. And yet, you didn't respond the same way anymore. There was a pause, a moment between the pressure and your reaction. A space that didn't exist before, and in that space, something new began to form. You bent, but you didn't break, even after everything that tried to fold you in on yourself, even after the nights that felt endless, even after the thoughts that told you it was over. You were still there, still breathing, still standing, even if it was barely. You struggled, but you didn't stop. Not because it was easy, not because you suddenly felt strong, but because something inside you refused to quit, and you couldn't explain it. It wasn't loud, it wasn't motivational, it wasn't some sudden burst of confidence or clarity. It was quiet, steady, unshaken, like a small flame that refused to go out, no matter how strong the wind became. You felt it, didn't you? That moment where you realized, I'm still here. Not in a proud way, not in a victorious way, but in a confused, almost shocked way. Because after everything you went through, after everything that tried to take you out, you were still here. And that meant something. Even if you didn't fully understand what. You bent, but you didn't break. You were pushed, stretched, tested, in ways that should have shattered you. But they didn't. And that's when the question started to change. It wasn't just, why is this happening to me? It slowly became, why didn't it destroy me? Because it should have. By all logic, by all emotion, by all experience, you should have been gone, lost, completely broken. But you weren't. And that realization, it started to awaken something, a different kind of awareness, a quiet understanding that maybe, just maybe, you weren't built like everyone else. Not in a way that makes you better, but in a way that makes you different. Because not everyone survives what you survived. Not everyone holds on the way you did. Not everyone can walk through that kind of internal storm and still exist. You struggled, but you didn't stop. even when stopping felt like the only option, even when everything inside you begged for rest, for escape, for silence. You kept going, not loudly, not perfectly, but consistently, and that consistency, that quiet refusal to disappear, that invisible resilience, it started to reveal something, something deeper than strength. Because strength is loud, strength is visible, strength is often seen and recognized. But this was different. This was survival without recognition, endurance without applause, persistence without understanding. This was something internal, something that didn't need validation, didn't need approval, something that simply was. And the more you sat with it, the more you felt it, the more it became clear. Your survival wasn't random. It wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was evidence that there is something inside you that refuses to break. You bent, but you didn't break. You struggled, but you didn't stop. And now, standing here looking back, you can finally see it. Not fully, not completely, but enough to know there's something different about you. Something that held you together when everything else was falling apart. Something that stayed when everything else left. And whatever that is, it didn't just save you, it revealed you. What was meant to destroy you built you. And now you're starting to see it. Not all at once, not in some loud, dramatic realization, but in quiet moments, in the way you think now, in the way you feel things differently. It's becoming clear. What you went through wasn't just random pain. It wasn't just a series of unfortunate events. It was pressure. Intentional or not, it was pressure designed to do one thing: break you, piece by piece, moment by moment. Everything you faced carried the same underlying force. To overwhelm you, to exhaust you, to make you question yourself so deeply that you would give up. And for a while, it almost worked. You felt it, that slow unraveling, that creeping doubt, that voice that kept asking, maybe you're not enough, maybe you're not meant for anything more. But here's the truth. It failed, not because it wasn't strong enough, but because of who you are. Because somewhere beneath the exhaustion, beneath the confusion, beneath the weight of everything that tried to bury you, there was something unbreakable. Something that couldn't be reached, couldn't be touched, something that refused to collapse. And now you're beginning to understand it. Because when you look back, you don't just see pain anymore. You see patterns. You see how every moment that tried to destroy you actually revealed something. What broke others built you. The isolation, it didn't just hurt you. It taught you how to stand alone, how to listen to yourself, how to trust your own voice, even when no one else understood it. The confusion, it didn't just overwhelm you. It forced you to question everything, to look deeper, to search for truth beyond surface-level answers. The pressure, it didn't just weigh you down. It strengthened something inside you that you didn't even know existed. Because pressure doesn't just crush. It also shapes. And you were being shaped, not into something weaker, but into something more aware, more grounded, more real. You see things differently now, don't you? The way people move, the way situations unfold, the way energy shifts in a room, things you never noticed before. You feel them now, you sense them, because pain opened your eyes in a way comfort never could. And that's the part no one tells you. That sometimes, the very thing that feels like it's destroying you is actually revealing you. You didn't just survive that storm. You changed in it. Your mindset shifted. Your awareness expanded. Your tolerance for illusions disappeared. You don't fall for the same things anymore. You don't ignore your instincts anymore. You don't silence that inner voice anymore. Because now you know what it feels like to lose yourself. And you refuse to go back there. What broke others built you. Not because their pain was less, but because your design, your nature, your depth was different. You weren't meant to stay the same after that. You weren't meant to come out unchanged. You were meant to see, to wake up, to realize that everything you went through wasn't just an attack. It was a test of identity, a test to see if you would forget who you are, or if you would find it under pressure. And you did. Maybe not all at once, maybe not perfectly, but you did. Because here you are, still standing, still aware, still moving forward, even if it's slower, even if it's quieter, but with something you didn't have before. Clarity. Not the kind that answers everything, but the kind that changes how you see everything. You understand now that what tried to destroy you only revealed your foundation, and your foundation is stronger than anything that came against you. That's why it didn't work. That's why you're still here. Because this wasn't the end of you. This was the awakening of you. Now you see things differently, and now here you are. Not the same person you used to be. Not the same mind, not the same heart, not the same energy. Something changed. Not overnight, not in a way anyone else could clearly see. But deep within you, there was a transformation. You see differently now. Situations that once confused you now make sense. Patterns that once went unnoticed now stand out instantly. You don't just look at what's happening, you feel what's behind it. The intentions, the energy, the unspoken truth. You pick up on it without trying, and it's not something you learned, it's something you became. You see differently now. People too. The way they speak, the way they move, the way their words don't always match their actions. You notice it, not with judgment, but with awareness, because you've experienced what it feels like to be misled, to be confused, to be pulled into things that didn't align with you. And now you don't ignore that feeling anymore. You trust it, that inner voice, that quiet knowing. It's louder now, clearer, stronger. You move differently now. You don't react the same way you used to. Where you once rushed, now you pause. Where you once over-explained, now you observe. Where you once gave your energy freely, now you protect it. Not out of fear, but out of understanding. Because you've learned what it costs to give too much, to ignore your limits, to carry things that were never yours to carry. You move differently now, more intentional, more grounded, more aware of where your energy goes and who it goes to. And that awareness, it changed everything. Because strength, for you, doesn't look like it used to. It's not loud, it's not forceful, it's not something you need to prove. It's quiet, it's controlled. It's the ability to stay calm when everything around you is chaotic. It's the discipline to walk away when something doesn't feel right. It's the power to remain silent when reacting would only pull you back into something you've outgrown. That's your strength now, and it was built piece by piece. Through everything you endured, you see differently now. Even your past. What once felt like pain now feels like preparation. What once felt like loss now feels like redirection. You don't carry it the same way anymore. You understand it. You've processed it. And in doing so, you've taken your power back from it. Because your story, it doesn't control you anymore. It shaped you, yes. But it doesn't define you, you do. You move differently now. There's a calmness in you that wasn't there before. A stillness, even in uncertainty. Because you've already been through the storm. You've already faced the confusion, the pressure, the breaking point, and you made it through. So now, things don't shake you the same way. You don't panic as quickly. You don't doubt yourself as deeply. You don't lose yourself as easily. Because you know what it took to find yourself again. And that knowledge, that experience, that internal growth, it created something powerful, not visible to everyone, but undeniable to you. You see differently now. You move differently now. And because of that, you are different now. Stronger not just in endurance but in awareness. Wiser not just in thought but in feeling. More resilient, not because you avoid challenges, but because you know you can face them and not lose yourself in the process. This isn't just growth, this is evolution. A quiet, steady, undeniable evolution from who you were to who you are becoming. And the most powerful part, you didn't just survive the transformation, you became it. And now, this is where everything comes together. All the confusion, all the pain, all the moments you thought would be the end of you. They led you here, to this version of yourself. Stronger, quieter, aware. Because when you really look back, when you truly allow yourself to feel everything you went through, there's one truth that rises above all the rest. You are still here. After everything that tried to take you out, after every moment that told you to give up, after every thought that whispered, "You can't do this anymore," you are still here, breathing, thinking, becoming. And that alone says more about you than anything else ever could. You are still standing. Not in the same way you once were, not with the same innocence, not with the same untested strength, but with something deeper, something real, something that was earned. Because you didn't just walk through life, you walked through fire. And the fire didn't destroy you, it revealed you. Every challenge, every setback, every silent battle you fought, it wasn't just meant to break you. It was meant to expose what couldn't be broken. And now you see it. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not completely, but enough to know you were never weak. You were being tested in ways that most people will never understand. And you passed not by being perfect, but by refusing to disappear. You are still here, even when you had every reason not to be, even when it felt easier to let go, even when your strength felt like it had run out. You found a way, somehow, some way, and that somehow, that's your power. That's the part of you that can't be explained, can't be measured, can't be taken. Because it doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from within you. You are still standing. After the confusion tried to cloud your mind, after the pressure tried to crush your spirit, after the isolation tried to make you feel invisible, you are still standing. And not just surviving, but evolving. Because everything that was meant to destroy you only proved how strong you really are. Every moment you didn't give up, every time you kept going when it made no sense, every second you chose to stay, it all built something inside you, something solid, something unshakable. And now, you carry that with you, not as a burden, but as proof. Proof that you can endure, proof that you can rise, proof that no matter how dark it gets, you don't disappear, you transform, you are still here. And that means your story isn't over. It means there's more ahead of you. More growth, more clarity, more purposey. Because you didn't come this far just to stop now. You didn't survive everything you survived just to forget who you are. You are still standing. And this time, you know it, you feel it. Not in a loud, overwhelming way, but in a quiet, grounded certainty that no matter what comes next, you will face it, you will walk through it, and you will come out stronger. Just like you always have. Because this isn't the end of your story. This is the moment you finally realize you were never meant to be destroyed. You were meant to rise.